guys, welcome to the first edition of our new YouTube channel, Aqua LLC, Ecology. The reason why we're doing this channel now is to kind of bring together what we do in business and what we do to try to help our customers live a better and healthier life. So with Aqua Ecology, what we're doing is combining the two, and this is just a YouTube channel to kind of bring everything together. A lot of these things I talk about with my customers over and over and over again, and I just wanted to share this in a broader space. So let me give you a little background on the company. First of all, we are a water purification company. Aqua LLC, based in New York, is a company that sells reverse osmosis systems, and we sell whole house water softeners with and chemical filters, and we basically clean up your water at your home. So that's what we do as a business. And what I want to do with this channel is kind of bring together some of the things that we talk about in our presentation. So I guess the best way to start is to give you a little bit of background on myself. My name is Lamar Ramsey. I'm the owner of Aqua LLC. We're based in New York on Long Island, and what we do, like I said, is we put in whole house reverse osmosis systems, whole house water softeners with chemical filters, and we clean your water. And one of the first things that I do when I sit down with a customer is to try to explain to them why this is important, and also what's going on with the water in our area, Long Island. We pretty much serve New York City, New Jersey, Westchester County, Nassau, and Suffolk. So we have a lot of people in our area, and the waters in the areas are different depending on where you live. So the first thing we always start with is what's in the water. And we don't come in with, we have test kits that we come in with, but that's not our mode of operation. We basically use an online report from the water company of the customer. So we go into the house and I ask you who do you pay your water bill to? We put in the zip code, they choose their water company, we bring up the report, and we talk about it, because this report is an actual report of what the water company is saying is in the water. Not what I say, not from some magic trick in a kit. Is what they say is in the water. So I try to explain to them the best way to clean that up, and how the things that they say are coming out of their faucet affects their body, and how well they're doing, and how it interacts with the ecology of the gut bacteria in our own bodies, and that kind of thing. So just to give you a little background on myself, I have a degree in biology from Virginia Commonwealth University. I'm 56 years old. The company Aqua I bought from another gentleman, and I've been doing this for a good amount of time. But what makes, I think, our company a little different is we go from a chemical, biological point of view, and we try to make sure that we explain it to people in a format that they understand. So we're not going to get really heavy with a lot of stuff, but I need them or you to see why this is important. So first of all, let me give you a little background on myself. So like I said, I bought this company many years ago, and I was a customer of the company first. So I've had my water system for many years, and I kind of started looking around for a water company while I was working for a local TV station in New York, actually a broadcast facility. It was actually at that time called Rainbow Network, and we were actually getting ready to take a move from one area on Long Island to a new area on Long Island. And when this process was happening, we were moving a bunch of employees, and there was like, I don't know, 30, 40 networks, TV networks that were going to move into this new facility. And they were spending millions and millions of dollars to move us to this new area with more space and, more centrally located on Long Island and all that good stuff. We get down, they start building the facility. They start going through a whole bunch of arrangements to start transferring these TV stations that were in Floral Park, New York, on Long Island to Bethpage, Long Island. And one of the things that held up our move was once they started that process, they found out that the water at the new facility was contaminated, and it was a actual Superfund site that we were moving to. So that kind of delayed the move. And what happened was the powers that be decided, and I was a supervisor at the time, so I was in on some of the meetings and things that were going on as we, they tell the supervisors, and then the supervisors tell the employees what's going on. So we had these meetings, and they started talking about how bad the water was and that they needed to fix it before we made this move. And like basically we were already ready to move, and then this thing just kind of threw a wrench into it. So I was working in television. I really had not used my biology degree. I was working in mass communications, even though I didn't have a degree in that, but I had a degree and I got a job there. I had been there for a good amount of years at that point, maybe 10 or so, and I had worked my way up, became a supervisor. And then this move came along. We were working a lot of overtime trying to get this thing going, and then all of a sudden the brakes stopped because the new place we were moving to had bad water. So what happens in corporate America is, when lawyers get involved with stuff like this, they start saying to the powers that be, hey, you know what? This could be a bad thing potentially down the road. If we move these guys in the facility, and God forbid somebody pops up with some rare cancer, and then they're going to sue this big Fortune 500 company saying that we moved to a Superfund site and we didn't address this issue, and now people are kind of popping up with cancer. So basically, we put the brakes on the move, slowed things down. The company went into remediation, had some environmentalists come in, take a look at the status of the water, because that facility had been sitting for a while before we started retrofitting it. And they made some modifications to the water so that we could safely move in, because they had things, when you work in television, what tends to happen is it's 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365. So people are in there 24 hours a day. They go home, they come back. Some people do double shifts. They had a cafeteria that had fountains, all you can drink fountain soda. They want to pump you up with sugar and caffeine because you're in a dark room with a bunch of monitors, and they want to keep you awake, and all that stuff was free. So of course we were all young at the time, and a lot of young people, we can hype up on caffeine and keep it moving, coffee. But basically they were worried about them making coffee and soda and washing and that kind of thing in contaminated water. That was a federally designated Superfund site and a state federal designated Superfund site. The facility was on the Grumman Bethpage site. It was one of the buildings. I think it was originally a hangar, airline hangar for Northrop Grumman. And back in the day, they had no idea what was going on with the water there. But basically, Northrop Grumman and the Navy were dumping toxic chemicals into the ground, rocket fuel, whatever they were building, anything they needed to discard, they just dumped it. And so for many years, Long Island Water has had one of the biggest Superfund sites in America. And it's right there, and that is ground zero for this site. And it's still to this day being cleaned up, the village and the state, and you can go look these things up. Superfund site, Bethpage, Long Island. Chuck Schumer sued them to get a listing of all the toxins that are in the water. So it was, over the years, more and more people found out about it. But during our time, maybe early 2000s, I want to say 2000, 2001, we were making this move. A lot of people had never heard of a Superfund site. it wasn't the thing like it is now. People didn't know anything about it. But when I heard about it, it kind of hit me because at that time, my wife was pregnant with my son, and we were going, what is this? So I started educating myself a little bit on Long Island water, found out that we're on an aquifer system, and this aquifer system is basically, we live on Long Island, which is an island completely surrounded by water. And where we get our water from is basically an aquifer system, which in very simplistic terms is a giant cave full of water underneath our feet. So everybody who walks on land on Long Island, including Brooklyn, Queens, Nassau, Suffolk, is walking on top of about 90 trillion gallons of water. So basically anything you put in the soil or dump in the soil or put on your lawn or anything, it goes into the drinking water system. So back in, I guess in the 30s, 40s, 50s, when Grumman was doing his thing, whenever it was there, they didn't know any better. They were like, we need to get rid of this stuff. We're making this stuff. Let's just dump it. So they contaminated the water source. And it's not just Northrop Grumman and the Navy that contaminated the water source. I mean, this was done all over Long Island. There are probably some, it's got to be a good 2,000 or 3,000 Superfund sites on Long Island, all over the Long Island, from dry cleaners to gas stations to that had leaky tanks to anything you can think of that anybody wanted to dispose of anything back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And it wasn't like, am I going to put this out to the garbage? No, I'll just take the oil and pour it out in the back and whatever. We'll deal with that later. And a lot of people did not realize that these things were contaminating the water to a great degree. So when I started doing my research on it and found out that there were Superfund sites all over the place, and as a matter of fact, there's one probably maybe less than a mile from my house, we started looking for a water company to take out these chemicals and remove them. My father had a friend who owns a water purification company. He came out, we talked, and basically what I was looking for is something that was going to remove chemical out of the water. A lot of companies were talking about water softeners, and that did not fit the bill for me. I knew a water softener was just basically taking dirt out of the water and rock out of the water. I was looking for something that was going to, of course, I mean, that's fine, but I was looking for something that was going to do a little bit more than that and actually take some of these chemicals that the company that I was working for was so afraid to send employees to because they were worried about cancer and being sued. I want that same level of protection at my house. I wanted to remove these things and take them out of the environment so that the wife and the kids and things were not being exposed to this stuff. So we met with my father's friend who originally owned the company, and we talked, and then he seemed to be a bit of a chemical nerd, and we started talking about chemical in the water and how to remove it. And then because of my background, like, these were easy conversations to have. I felt satisfied, and the system that I bought actually removes chemical out of the water, and it also softens the water. And it's not 100%. That's not the way these things work. But it was greatly reduced, which I like. And I figured that I was going to do a better job in the home doing this than doing nothing. And then on top of that, I mean, we all live in the real world. I wasn't moving from Long Island. I was still going to eat out on Long Island. I was still going to go to my favorite pizza place. I was still going to go to my favorite, whatever. And they were going to use the tap water to cook the food. So I knew I was still going to get contaminated to some degree, but at least at home, I knew I was safe. So fast forward to more recent times. The short end of the story is eventually, once I left Cablevision and went into some other things, I ended up buying the water company, and now I own it. And I try to treat people and give them the same experience that I had, the reasons why I bought the system for myself, and also explain to them why the chemicals in the water are not a good thing and how they affect your body. So that's one of the most important things, is not so much the selling part of this thing. This video is not really for that. This video is to help people understand why they need to look at more of a global look at what's going on in our environment, how we're dealing with this as human beings, all these chemicals and things that we created, and how they're coming back on us. When you look at TV these days, and it is about, I don't know, about 10, 11 o'clock this morning, and I woke up and I decided today was the day I was going to do this video, because I'm seeing commercials and commercials and commercials and commercials for all these autoimmune diseases. There are young people, 20s and 30s, with young children in these commercials. These pharmaceutical companies are advertising whoever you see in the commercial, because I just told you I used to work in television, and commercial prep was one of the things that I did. When you see someone in a commercial, that's the target audience. So if you see a young 30-year-old in a commercial with a young child, that's the target audience. That's who they're trying to say, hey, you may need this. So when you watch commercials and you see, I'm not going to name any name brands, but you've seen them. They're for eczema, they're for arthritis, they're for all of these autoimmune diseases. And what you're seeing is young people in the commercials is because they are suffering from things that used to only happen to people in their late 50s and 60s and 70s, and they're suffering from these things in their 30s. And one of the reasons why this is happening is the toxicity in our environment is increasing. So the autoimmune response is increasing and happening earlier in people's lives. And I'm 56 years old, and I can tell you, when I was young, arthritis was a thing, but used to see like Tylenol commercials and, aspirin, Bayer aspirin. And all of the people in the commercials were in rocking chairs. They had walkers. They were clearly senior citizens, and they were advertising these people, get the pain out of your knuckles, help your knees, and they were advertising these people. So now, here it is, 2022, we're a few days in, this has been going on for years, and if you turn on the morning news, almost every commercial is with a young person in it, with small children, talking about you can play basketball with them, you don't have to have that knee pain, you don't have to have that psoriatic arthritis or that skin rash. We can fix you by tamping down your immune system so that these things go away. Now, when I look at these things, I say to myself, wow, they're actually trying to tamper down your own body's immune response so that you don't get the skin rash or you don't get the inflammation in your joints. Now, a lot of people I found when I talk to them about this stuff, the stuff kind of goes over their head. They're like, what are you talking about? Autoimmune disease. Why? Okay, so let's take it back to, especially people my age, my children are basically grown, but you remember when the baby was first born, and then you gave the baby its first taste of solid foods, and then, oh my goodness, baby cakes got a little rash on their face, a little rash on their behind when you change them, and they're starting to get these little skin rashes. And when you're a new parent, you like freak out. You're like, oh my God, I got to go to the pediatrician. There's a rash. These things are happening because the baby's gut bacteria is almost non-existent. The baby's immune system at this point is almost non-existent. So everything is a new thing. So when you expose the child to something new, and it doesn't have to be that what you gave them was bad, it brings about an immune response. The body goes, whoa, 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 what is this? Let me send some white blood cells. I've never seen this before. I don't know if this is something good or bad, but let's attack it and let's see what it is. So that's what's happening. Over time, they get used to it, the rashes stop, and that kind of thing. And that's what's happening to grown people who don't know what's giving them the immune response, but they know that all of a sudden I'm 25 years old and I have a GI tract problem. I have a Crohn's disease. I can't eat pizza anymore. I can't digest gluten. They're going through all these changes. And one of the reasons why, and if you start to look into this, is that our gut bacteria is being wiped out by pollutants that are in our environment, whether we breathe them in or we get it through things that we ingest or things like the water that we drink. These toxins are starting to wipe out gut bacteria. And when that happens, your body's defenses start to break down. Because I don't know if a lot of people know, we as human beings think that we eat something and we think that that food that we eat is going into our body and our body is just breaking this stuff down and then we're digesting it and it's going to our cells. That's not really what's happening. There are trillions of microorganisms that are in our body. So you should think of yourself as a giant test tube of microorganisms. These microorganisms have their own set of genes and they take in what we eat and they break these things down and then they excrete material that our bodies take in and then help our genes express. So we're secondary to what our gut bacteria is doing. So we live in symbiosis with these organisms. Some are viruses, some are bacteria, some are fungi. There's a lot of different things going on. Like I said, there's over 1 trillion of these microorganisms in our body. And how well your microorganisms is doing is going to dictate how well you're doing. So if you're consuming things that are wiping out gut bacteria, you are going to have problems in your own body because we are only as good as they are. So let me give you another example. So a lot of people, you go online, I like to take turmeric. Turmeric is polyphenol, it's anti-inflammatory, that kind of thing. Well, we as humans, we're not really doing anything with turmeric. We're not actually breaking that compound down. Turmeric is feeding our microorganisms, and our microorganisms are breaking down that turmeric. And then that turmeric, the byproduct of their breakdown, is what we're benefiting from. So it's not a one-on-one. So I say that to say this. If you don't have the microorganisms to break down the turmeric in the proper form that's going to benefit you, because let's say they've been wiped out by something you ate or drank, then you will not be getting the benefits from the turmeric because you and your genes and the way your body's set up, you don't have the ability to break that down. So the most important thing you can do is you need to start at the basics and you need to improve your gut bacteria. And one of the things, the basic thing that you can do is to clean up your water. Because what you don't realize is all those compounds in your water, and I'm going to show you a few of those compounds in my own water system at my own address. Like I said, I live on Long Island. I'm going to open this up and show you. But what this does is the compounds in the water right out of the gate sets you back with how well your gut bacteria is going. If you're using straight water from coming out of municipal water, the company that actually is in charge of my municipal water is American Water. I went to a little town meeting where they were talking to the residents about the water, and they actually gave us some paperwork, and they were trying to show us what kind of job they're doing. And basically, and I have nothing against water companies. I think they're doing the best job that they can. The guys were really cool. They had the chemist there, they had the president of American Water there, the local president for our area. And they sat down, they spoke with the residents, and they gave us pamphlets and brochures. And they said, basically, we have a whole list of chemicals that we test for every day. And we're trying to eliminate, some of the ones that are higher than they should be. And they also told us that they test for a good 7,000 compounds, over 7,000 compounds in the water. And they found over 7,000 compounds in our local water, some naturally occurring, some man-made, combination of both. Because our water sits in a big aquifer system, which is a big cave underneath our feet. And in that cave, there's just naturally occurring stuff also. So they wanted to tell us that there are 7,000, I think it was 7,437 different compounds that they found in the water. And they wanted to tell us that they were aware of these things and that they're tests for these things and that they're bringing safe water, EPA standard water to the home. And all that is great. So I have no issues with that. When you're dealing with a big company and they have millions, because on Long Island, there are millions of people. So, and when you're talking about, the Brooklyn and Queens that also sit on Long Island, you're talking about, quite a few people living on top of the drinking water system and contaminating it. So, when we look at what they're trying to do, they're doing a great job. There's really no issues there. It's just that logistics make it difficult for them. And that's why they put in the water report what they put in it. They want to let you know what's still coming out of your faucet, because logistically, when you look at what they have to do, they have to pump the water out, they have to treat it, clean it, and then put it in a pipe that's in the ground and then send it to your house. And what happens is, when it's traveling from where they pump it out at and then goes to your house, the pipe that it's going through has material in it. The pipes are cracked. Some of these pipes, they explained to us, are 100 plus years old, 150 years old. They don't have, we couldn't afford to pay for our water if they went and ripped up every pipe that was 100 years old, as there's a lot of infrastructure that's built up over time. And that the water report's purpose was to let them know that this is what we see at the well site, and this is what, at a minimum, is coming into your house. But what happens is the actual numbers are actually higher at the house because it goes through a pipe that's got material built up in it. Pipes going to roads that are getting driven over by trucks, pipes crack, things seep in from the ground. So that's why they spend time chlorinating the water and putting bromine and other disinfectants in the water, because they know there's no way we know if the pipe is cracked in the middle of the road or on your street. The only way they say they know, and this is coming from them, they said if you turn on your water, fill up your sink with water in your kitchen, let the water out, and feel at the bottom and see if you feel any kind of sand or grit. If you feel sand or grit, you have to call them. They know that somewhere there's a hole in the pipe somewhere on your block and maybe in front of your house. They don't know, but at least they're aware of it. They get enough of those calls, maybe everybody in your block saying we have grit. Then they go in and they put in a request to maybe come and help tear out the pipes. But it's a long process. I mean, it could take them 10 years to get to you, because they have to get sign off from the village, and then the village says who's going to put the road back, and the water company says, I don't do roads. And then the village says, well, we got a plan to do the road in 2035. So then the water company says, okay, so when you do the road in 2035, then we'll do the piping. Meanwhile, the customer is like, 2035 is 2022. It's 2022. So I'm going to be contaminated from 2022 to 2035? And that's when you're going to start the job. So these are the things that happen. And the water company was very upfront, and they said, these are the things that we have to fight against. because even if we rip the road up ourselves, we still have to get the village to put that patch back down or tear the whole road up. So there's a lot of things that have to go to even get that problem fixed. So I say all this to say this: the contamination that's happening in many areas in the country, but particularly on Long Island, New Jersey, Westchester, New York City, is due to old infrastructure and a lot of people living on top of their water for many, many, many years. And this toxic environment is building and building and building and building, and is built up to a point now where we're starting to have to, and even municipalities and governments, if you go online and Google contaminated water on Long Island, contaminated water in New Jersey, you're going to get articles from politicians and from companies talking about this is something that needs to be fixed and something that needs to be addressed. So the way we address it is we come into your home. We actually sit down and talk to you about these chemicals and how they're affecting your body. And then we try to give you a solution to help you reduce these chemicals down to a level that's comfortable. And that's the goal of what we do as a company, as Aqua LLC. But this particular channel is going to be more about, it's going to be about water, but it's also going to be about how your body is responding to the environment. It's going to be also about a little bit about gardening and how that impacts what you eat and how you eat, how that affects your body. Because one of the things that some of my customers know about me is I like to grow fruit trees and I like gardening. And just to give you a little background on that, because I'm going to be talking about that on this channel, because it's all related. It's not like you're talking about the body and now you're talking about gardening. No, it's all related. So let me give you an example. I probably have like 42 fruit trees on my property. My neighbors probably think I'm crazy. I'm forever looking at a tree, digging in the soil, trying to put something in the soil, putting down compost, spraying biological things all over the place. And they probably think that I've lost my mind, but they're starting to see, apples on my apple trees in the front. I got dwarf apple trees in the front of my house. So, wherever you ridden around and you ride by and you see a whole tree full of apples, the tree is only like maybe 6 feet tall and it's loaded up with apples. So these are the kind of things that I'm into. And the reason why I'm telling you these things are related is once I started doing fruit trees, and I have been in the water business for a while now and talking to people about gut bacteria and the things we already spoke about. And one of the things that I wanted to do was, obviously, I wanted to eat better. I wanted to have healthier foods. I like apples, but if you look up apples, the apples you buy in the store, the non-organic apples, are probably one of the most highly pesticide used material. I mean, they have to spray so much on these apples in these orchards to actually get them to look pretty and to come into the store and look like something you want to buy. And I really didn't want to eat all that stuff. So I went to Home Depot and I bought 3 apple trees. And these trees were, they looked like they were in pretty good condition. And I decided that I'm going to put these 3 trees in the front of my house because, I figure I grow my own apples. I don't have to eat, any of the, what they call dirty dozen of fruits. And so I plopped them in the ground. And I say I put them in the spring, and I would say within maybe a few weeks they flowered, and then they got this like brown fuzz all over them. I didn't know what it was. I just thought, well, maybe that's what apple trees do. They get fuzzy. I don't know. Put some fertilizer down, did all the stuff that I saw people doing online and the garden center guy told me to do, put NPK and load it up and blah, blah, blah. So I did all of that stuff. And lo and behold, the trees, they got some apples on them. I mean, right out of the gate. I guess these trees were probably a few years old. and they got some apples on them, and then all of a sudden, the apples were so deformed, and I'm going to be doing videos about this in the future. I'm going to show you some pictures that I took of the apples when I first started growing them and how crazy they looked. I tried to figure out what was wrong. You know, I'm a YouTube person. I went on YouTube and they said spray this and fungicide that, and you know, you go out, they say because this is happening, you got to kill it and you got to do this and that. So now I started to realize why the commercial apples had so much toxicity, because I mean, if you follow their thinking, you're trying to fix a problem with like a pill. You're saying this is the problem and I give it this pill or this spray, and that will suppress that thing that's going on, and then I could get the pretty apple. And then I suppress one thing, and then now the insects are infiltrating now. The apples are looking better, but everyone's got a worm in it from the coddling moth. So then I get another spray and I try to kill this insect, and it's crazy because, you know, this went on for years. So I'm getting frustrated with these trees, but I'm not going to dig them up. They've been in the ground a couple of years, and I'm still having all these issues. I'm like, well, hell, how does anybody ever grow any fruit? I mean, I can't imagine trying to grow fruit and, you know, you're constantly having to deal with this type of stuff. So it finally, I started looking into some alternative stuff and how do I grow organically, because this wasn't solving anything. I was actually creating the same apples I could have got in the store cheap, and they were still better looking than my apples. So what I started looking into is, how do I do this in a natural way? And the first thing I said to myself was, how do I figure out why this is happening? And one of the things that I found out, the reason why my trees were not performing was because the microorganisms in my soil were missing. The tree has everything genetically already engineered in it to stop everything that I was having a problem with. But the tree cannot deal with these things by itself. It needs microorganisms in the soil to break down the nutrition so that the tree can absorb it, so that it can knock out or eliminate these pests. And I'm not just talking about things that are like fungal infections like apple scab and some of these other things, powdery mildew and all these things. I'm not just talking about the biological things to knock out. I'm telling you that if your tree is healthy, you will not have any biologicals, funguses, powdery mildew. You won't have any of those things happening. And you also won't have any bugs eating your fruit either, if your tree is healthy. Bugs and these microorganisms attack weak trees who are malnourished, because the bacteria and the viruses and the protozoa and the things in the soil that it's supposed to be getting its nutrition from have been depleted. And what I didn't realize is, you look at the soil, you're like, well, soil is soil. Man, hell, I got grass growing on it, so it must be okay. But then when I really looked at my grass, I said, well, you know what? This is not really grass. This is kind of like low-lying weeds with grass mixed into it. And it really wasn't grass. So what I started to realize is that I had poor soil. Once I fixed the soil, then the apple scab went away, the blemishes went away, the crazy looking leaves went away, and then the insects went away. I haven't seen a worm in an apple in years, and I have not put not a lick of insecticide down. I have not had to spray any oils or spray any of that stuff. Insects, there's another person on my block who also has apple trees. There's another person, there's a farm within, I mean, if I were to walk there slowly, I would be at this farm within 2 minutes. And that's with having to cross a major street. This is going to take me time to cross it for the cars, but I would be there in 2 minutes. And their apples are the worst looking apples I've ever, worm infested, fungal, diseased creatures that don't even look like apples. They're so deformed. And I'm going to do some videos on that. I'm going to show you some pictures of that, what their apples look like as opposed to what my apples look like. They're supposed to be an organic farm and they're having all kinds of issues. The reason why these things happen is if the tree's soil or the tree's gut bacteria is not correct, the tree cannot express its genes fully. So it spends all of its time, instead of producing fruit and giving you high quality fruit, it spends all its time trying to correct the soil. It sends all of its energy and sugars into the soil to try to correct the biology, because it knows I can't do what I need to do, which is create seeds through my fruit, because I'm not getting nutrition from the soil. So the tree actually will work on first trying to get the soil right, and then it will give you what you want, which is this pretty tasty fruit. So we will be doing videos on that because it is all related. The soil is the gut bacteria for the plant. You get that right, you get the plant right. You get that right, you get your fruit, and everybody goes, oh my God, you have such pretty apples in your tree. And I don't just have apples, I got plums, pluots, strawberries, everything. All my stuff looks like it came out of the store. All of it. It looks better than stuff in the store. Because what I've learned is you get the nutrition right, you get the soil right, it gives you everything you want. And I never have to worry about it. I don't care nothing about insects. I have more issues with squirrels and maybe some possum than I ever do with insects, because it's funny how these things work. When your tree is not healthy, it gets attacked by insects. Insects are attracted to unhealthy fruit. Insects are attracted to unhealthy fruits. I'll give you an example of that. So if you have you bought some bananas and you went to Whole Foods and you got some good organic bananas and you've eaten them up, and then you go and they go ripe really fast because they're organic. They don't have anything on them. And next thing you know, as they start to brown up, all of a sudden you're doing this. Fruit flies everywhere because now it's starting to break down. Once it starts to break down, here come the insects. It's the way it works. So if you got insects entering your fruit on your tree, still connected to your tree, your fruit is not of standard. It is in a space where it is unhealthy, and the fruit and the flies and the maggots are going to take it out even before it becomes ripe. So one of the ways you can tell whether or not your fruit tree is performing well is if you've done nothing and you still have big, beautiful fruit with no insects on them. You don't have no insects on your leaves. It is a function of how healthy your tree is. So these are some of the things that we're going to be talking about. And like I said, it's all related, because if you eat a healthy piece of fruit, you will take from the tree is taken from the soil everything it needs to create a healthy fruit. And then you take from the tree a healthy fruit and you eat it, and you feed your gut bacteria everything that it needs, because it is eating a piece of fruit or a vegetable or a carrot that has everything in it that your gut bacteria needs. And then your gut bacteria will break down that material, and then that material will feed your genes so you can express at your fullest level. So like I said, all these things are related, and that's why this channel is going to be about a multitude of things that have to do with the ecology that we're living in, the microbiome that all of us, including our plants, our dogs, our cats, and everything. We're going to be discussing things that have to do with your pet, because one of the reasons why I'm doing this channel is my customers are my best source of information. I have customers who are internists, who are cardiologists, who are veterinarians. They give me stories about things that are happening in an environment and things they're seeing in their offices. And I'm like, wow, people really don't know about these things. So we're going to be discussing these things. And lo and behold, when we really dig down to it, the reason why they called me to put in a water system is because they're concerned about these things. They're concerned about these things, and they know that the water is key to a lot of these things either being suppressed or a lot of these things being built up. If you're drinking unsafe clean water, or you're bathing in it because your skin is not a glove, things go through your skin. You ever take an Epsom salt bath? That Epsom salt is going through your skin, making you feel all relaxed when you take it in the bath. That's true of other chemicals that are in the environment that you are bathing in. So we want to clean those things up so that you can have your microbiome operate properly, so therefore you can operate properly. So stay tuned for the next video. Like I said, this is Aqua LLC. Signing off right now. We'll do another video maybe by the end of the week, and we'll start to dive in with more detail about some of these topics. I think the first video I'm going to do is going to be about the water and the chemicals in the water. I'm going to show you a water report. We're going to dig into it a little deep. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Take care.